All right, so get this. You guys sent in some stories that sound like straight out of a movie, but they're all true. We're talking a nail lodged in a skull, but going unnoticed for like a whole day.
Wow.
We'll unpack that one using the actual X-ray you found.
Oh, wow.
And you know that fascination you have with cases that expose flaws in the system?
Yeah.
Well, the story of Timothy John Evans is going to make you think twice about everything you thought you knew about justice.
It's fascinating to me how these stories, while seemingly outlandish, offer a unique window into the complexities of human experience. The limits of our understanding and the power of both the human body and the natural world to defy expectations.
Let's jump right into that nail gun incident.
Okay.
Dante Athulo, doing some work in his garage, accidentally shoots a nail into his own head, and then life goes on as usual for a whole 24 hours.
Oh my God.
I mean, how's that even possible?
Right.
The X-ray you sent is wild. You can see the nail right there.
It's not just possible, it's actually a testament to the incredible adaptability of the human brain.
Yeah.
Looking at the placement in the X-ray, it appears the nail managed to avoid any major blood vessels or critical brain regions.
Wow.
Now, that's not to say there wasn't damage, but the brain has this amazing ability to compensate for injuries, rerouting signals and functions as needed.
Right.
Add to that the body's natural shock response, which can mask pain and other symptoms, and you have a recipe for a delayed reaction to a pretty significant trauma.
But still a nail in the head.
Right.
You'd think there'd be some immediate overwhelming sign that something was wrong.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't someone notice something like that right away?
Well, remember, every brain injury is unique. In this case, the specific location of the nail likely played a crucial role in that delayed reaction.
Yeah.
It's possible that the surrounding tissues were able to absorb some of the impact, further reducing the initial severity of the symptoms.
Right.
And you mentioned in your notes that Mr. Atula reported experiencing some mild discomfort, but he attributed it to fatigue and stress. It wasn't until later, when the swelling increased and pressure built up, that the more severe symptoms like nausea and fever set in, prompting him to seek medical attention.
This is why I love these deep dives.
Yeah.
It's not just the unbelievable story itself,
Right.
but the deeper understanding we get of how things work in this case. How our brains can be both incredibly resilient and surprisingly deceptive.
Exactly. It reminds us that we're constantly learning, constantly uncovering new layers of complexity in seemingly simple things.
All right, from the incredible resilience of the human brain, let's shift gears to a story that speaks to our fascination with the unexplained.
Okay.
You sent in a video from Spain, a beautiful double rainbow captured just hours before a devastating flood.
Oh, wow.
But it's not just the rainbow that's caught people's attention, right? There are those strange lights moving in the background of the video that have everyone buzzing.
Ah, yes, the double rainbow and the mysterious lights.
Yeah.
Quite a combination, and I understand why it sparked so much speculation online. People love a good mystery, and this one has all the ingredients. A striking natural phenomenon, an impending disaster, and those unexplained lights that seem to defy easy explanation.
Let's talk about those lights.
Right.
We've got theories ranging from UFOs to time travelers, even disaster tourists, people who are drawn to areas hit by natural calamities.
Right.
It's like a real-life X-Files episode.
It's tempting to jump to those more fantastical explanations, especially when we're dealing with something we don't immediately understand.
Yeah.
But it's crucial to approach such claims with a healthy dose of skepticism.
Right.
Have all other possibilities been explored? Could those lights be anything from reflections off windows or car headlights to drones or even birds caught in unusual lighting?
Yeah.
It's easy to overlook mundane explanations when the allure of the extraordinary is so strong.
You're right. It's important to avoid jumping to conclusions.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there's something undeniably compelling about these unexplained phenomena. They tap into our sense of wonder and remind us that there are still mysteries out there waiting to be solved.
Absolutely. It's that sense of wonder that drives scientific inquiry,
Right.
that pushes us to seek knowledge and understanding.
Right.
But it's also important to temper that wonder with critical thinking and a commitment to evidence-based reasoning.
From the mysteries of the natural world, let's turn our attention to a case that tragically highlights the flaws within our own systems.
Okay.
You're interested in stories about wrongful convictions,
I am.
and this one is particularly heartbreaking. Timothy John Evans, a man with a learning disability, was wrongly executed in 1950 in London for the murder of his wife and daughter.
Wow.
This case raises so many questions about the justice system, especially how vulnerable individuals can be failed by the very system that's supposed to protect them.
The Timothy Evans case is a stark reminder of how easily things can go wrong, even in a system that prides itself on fairness and due process. The fact that Evans had a learning disability made him particularly susceptible to manipulation and coercion.
Right.
And you pointed out in your research that his confession, which was the cornerstone of the prosecution's case, was obtained under duress and without proper legal representation.
Yeah.
This raises serious questions about the validity of the evidence used to convict him.
And then there's the horrifying revelation that the real killer was a former police officer, John Christie, who lived in the same building.
Oh my gosh.
It's a shocking twist that exposes the fallibility of law enforcement and the devastating consequences of a flawed investigation. What are your thoughts on this case, especially in the context of your expertise in criminal justice?
The Evans case is a tragic example of how systemic biases and investigative failures can lead to a miscarriage of justice.
Yeah.
The fact that Christie was a former police officer likely contributed to a certain level of trust and deference from investigators,
Yeah.
potentially leading them to overlook crucial evidence or downplay inconsistencies in his statements. The lack of adequate legal representation for Evans further compounded the problem, as he was unable to effectively challenge the prosecution's case or present his own defense.
This story makes you wonder about the countless other cases where justice might have been similarly miscarried, especially for those who lack the resources or the ability to advocate for themselves.
Yeah.
It's a chilling reminder of the human element in our justice system and the potential for error, bias, and even outright corruption.
It's a sobering reminder that the pursuit of justice is an ongoing process, one that requires constant vigilance, self-reflection, and a willingness to acknowledge and address systemic flaws. The Evans case, while tragic, ultimately led to significant reforms in the British legal system, highlighting the importance of thorough investigations, the right to legal counsel, and the protection of vulnerable individuals.
It's a testament to the power of individual stories to spark change, even amidst tragedy.
Yeah,
Okay. Ready to dive into something that feels ripped from the headlines?
sure.
You sent in an article about a company claiming to offer designer babies.
Yeah.
Not just screening for diseases, but for traits like IQ and even the risk of obesity.
Heliospec genomics, quite a bold claim.
Yeah.
And one that raises a host of ethical considerations.
Right.
The science behind genetic screening has advanced rapidly, but applying it to select for non-medical traits is a whole other ballgame.
They're using a publicly funded genetic database for their predictions, which is a whole other can of worms.
Oh, wow.
It feels like we're on the precipice of a sci-fi movie,
Yeah.
but it's all too real.
What's particularly concerning is that the company is promoting this technology as a way to enhance your child's potential,
Right.
almost like ordering from a menu of desirable traits.
Yeah.
This raises serious questions about genetic determinism, the idea that our genes dictate our destiny.
Right.
What happens to the concept of individuality, of embracing our differences if we start selecting embryos based on predetermined characteristics?
And who decides what those desirable characteristics are?
Right.
It's a slippery slope that could lead to a society obsessed with genetic perfection, further marginalizing those who don't fit the mold.
Yeah.
Plus, the use of a publicly funded database for this purpose raises questions about data privacy and consent. Were the individuals who contributed to this database aware that their genetic information might be used for such commercial ventures?
It's a complex issue with no easy answers, and it's one that we as a society need to carefully consider.
Right.
The potential benefits of genetic technology are undeniable, but we must also grapple with the potential risks and ensure that its development and application are guided by ethical principles and a commitment to social justice.
It's a conversation that needs to happen sooner rather than later before this technology becomes so widely available that we lose control of its impact on our society. Speaking of things that make you squirm, get this, a live cockroach found in a man's intestine. How is that even possible? What does it say about these seemingly indestructible creatures?
Cockroaches, those ultimate survivors. While this case is certainly unusual, it speaks to their incredible resilience and adaptability.
Yeah.
They can withstand extreme temperatures, survive for weeks without food, and even hold their breath for 40 minutes.
Oh.
So making it through the human digestive tract, while unpleasant, is perhaps not as surprising as it initially seems.
But still a cockroach in the gut. What does this say about food safety and hygiene? I mean, how does something like that even happen?
While the details of this particular case aren't readily available, it's likely the cockroach was ingested accidentally,
Yeah.
perhaps while sleeping or consuming contaminated food.
Right.
This serves as a reminder of the importance of proper food handling and storage and the need to be vigilant about potential sources of contamination, especially when traveling to areas with different hygiene standards.
All right, let's move on to something a little less creepy crawly.
Okay. It's fascinating how our minds can conjure up such vivid and sometimes disturbing imagery while we sleep.
All right, speaking of things that go bump in the night, this next one is about something you've been researching, the connection between nightmares and death.
Hmm.
It sounds like a horror movie plot, but
Yeah.
you sent in some articles suggesting it's not as far-fetched as it seems.
The idea that nightmares can have a physical impact, even potentially leading to death,
Yeah.
might seem unbelievable.
Right.
But there's a growing body of research that suggests it's not just a spooky myth.
Okay, break this down for me.
Mm-hmm.
We've all had nightmares woken up with a racing heart. But how could a bad dream actually be harmful?
It all comes down to the body's stress response.
Right.
During a nightmare, your brain essentially perceives the threat in the dream as real,
Okay.
triggering the fight or flight response.
Yeah.
Your heart rate and breathing increase, your muscles tense up, and adrenaline floods your system.
Yeah.
In most cases, this response is temporary and harmless.
Right.
But for some individuals, especially those with underlying health conditions like heart disease or sleep disorders, this sudden and intense stress can be too much for the body to handle.
So you're saying that for someone with a pre-existing heart condition, a particularly vivid nightmare could actually trigger a heart attack?
That's the theory, and there's some evidence to support it.
Wow.
There's a phenomenon called sudden unexpected nocturnal death syndrome, or SUNDS,
Okay.
which is often attributed to unexplained cardiac events during sleep. While more research is needed, some researchers believe that nightmares, particularly those that induce extreme fear or panic, could play a role in triggering these events.
That's both fascinating and a little bit terrifying.
Yeah.
I guess it's a reminder that our minds and bodies are more interconnected than we often realize, and that even seemingly harmless things like dreams can have a powerful impact on our physical well-being.
Exactly. It highlights the importance of paying attention to our dreams, especially if we're experiencing recurring nightmares or those that cause significant distress.
Right.
It could be a sign of underlying psychological issues like anxiety or PTSD, or even a medical condition that needs attention.
Okay. Shifting gears to a topic that's a little closer to home. Literally, this one comes from an article you shared about a chilling case of family annihilation.
Wow.
A 15-year-old boy kills his entire family, sparing only his younger sister, who manages to survive by playing dead.
Wow.
It's a story that sends chills down your spine and raises so many questions about what could drive someone to such an act of violence.
Cases of family annihilation are thankfully rare,
Right.
but they always shock and horrify us.
Yeah.
It's almost incomprehensible how someone, especially a young person, could commit such a heinous crime against their own loved ones.
The article mentions that the boy tried to frame his younger brother for the murders, which adds another layer of complexity to this already disturbing case. Yeah. What are your thoughts on this aspect of the story?
The attempt to shift blame, particularly onto a sibling, suggests a level of premeditation and a chilling lack of remorse that's deeply unsettling. It points to a potentially disturbed psychological state and raises questions about the boy's understanding of the consequences of his actions. It's also possible that he was trying to protect himself from the full weight of the law, knowing that as a juvenile, he might face a less severe punishment.
This case really highlights the complex and often disturbing intersection of psychology, family dynamics, and the criminal justice system.
Absolutely. Cases like this challenge us to understand the root causes of violence, particularly within families.
Yeah.
They force us to ask difficult questions about mental health, the role of trauma, and the warning signs that might be missed.
And the fact that the boy was ultimately tried as an adult raises a whole other set of legal and ethical considerations.
The decision to try juvenile as an adult is never taken lightly.
Right.
It involves weighing the severity of the crime, the potential for rehabilitation, and the safety of the community.
Right.
In this case, the horrific nature of the crime, the level of premeditation, and the attempt to deceive authorities likely influence the decision to try him as an adult.
This story is a tragic reminder of the darkness that can exist within families and the devastating consequences of unchecked violence. Okay, for our next story, let's go back to the realm of the strange and unbelievable. You sent in an article about a man in India who had a live cockroach lodged in his intestine.
Oh my.
It sounds like something out of a nightmare, but apparently it's a real thing.
It certainly is. While finding a cockroach in your food might be unsettling enough, discovering one living inside your digestive system is a whole other level of disturbing.
I can't even imagine the feeling of having a cockroach crawling around inside me. How does something like that even happen, and how could it possibly survive the harsh conditions of the human digestive system?
Cockroaches are notoriously resilient creatures.
Right.
They can survive in extreme temperatures, withstand high levels of radiation, and go for weeks without food.
Wow.
So while it's not common, it's not entirely surprising that a cockroach could survive a trip through the human digestive tract.
But how does it even get in there in the first place? Do people accidentally swallow cockroaches?
It's possible to ingest a small insect without even realizing it, especially while sleeping or eating contaminated food.
Oh.
In this case, the man reported experiencing abdominal pain and discomfort for several days before seeking medical attention. It wasn't until an endoscopy was performed that the doctors discovered the live cockroach lodged in his intestine.
That's both fascinating and incredibly gross. It makes you wonder what other strange and unexpected things might be lurking inside our bodies.
The human body is a complex and mysterious ecosystem.
Yeah.
While we like to think we have it all figured out, there's still so much we don't know about the microorganisms and even larger creatures that might call our bodies home, even temporarily.
Okay, I'm officially never sleeping or eating again, just kidding. But this story definitely has me thinking twice about food safety and hygiene. Okay, from creepy crawlies, let's shift to something that's both fascinating and a little bit unsettling.
Yeah.
Remember that article you sent about designer babies?
Yeah.
Well, it turns out that's not just science fiction anymore. We're talking about the potential to genetically engineer our children, selecting for specific traits like intelligence, athletic ability, even physical appearance.
It's the stuff of science fiction becoming reality, and it's raising some serious ethical questions about how far we should go with this technology.
The article you sent focuses on a company called Heliospec Genomics. They claim to offer parents the ability to screen embryos for not just diseases, but for a whole range of desirable traits. It's almost like creating a custom-designed human being.
What's particularly striking is how they're framing this technology.
Yeah.
It's not just about preventing diseases, it's about enhancing your child's potential, giving them a leg up in life. But who gets to decide what constitutes an enhancement?
And what happens to the idea of diversity and acceptance if everyone is striving for the same set of perfect traits? It's a slippery slope that could lead to a society obsessed with genetic perfection, further marginalizing those who don't fit the mold.
This technology raises fundamental questions about what it means to be human. Are we simply a collection of genes that can be optimized and manipulated? Or is there something more to us, something that can't be measured or quantified?
And what about the potential for unintended consequences messing with our genes? Could have unforeseen ripple effects that we can't even begin to predict. It's like opening Pandora's box.
We're treading into uncharted territory, and we need to proceed with caution. The potential benefits of genetic engineering are undeniable, but we need to carefully weigh those benefits against the risks.
This is a conversation that needs to involve not just scientists and doctors, but ethicists, policymakers, and the public at large. The decisions we make about this technology will have far-reaching implications for generations to come.
It's a reminder that scientific progress doesn't exist in a vacuum. We need to consider the social and ethical implications of new technologies and ensure that they're used responsibly and for the benefit of all humankind.
Well, folks, that wraps up our deep dive into your unbelievable stories.
Wow.
We've covered a lot of ground today, from a nail in the head to a cockroach in the gut, from nightmares to designer babies.
It's been quite a journey.
And one thing's for sure, reality is often stranger than fiction.
What I find most inspiring is how these stories spark our curiosity and make us question our assumptions about the world. They remind us that there's always more to learn and that the pursuit of knowledge is an endless journey.
If you have your own unbelievable story to share, we'd love to hear it. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep those stories coming.